time for the Shop Report with
Barbershop Jay.
What up, sports fans? Welcome to the Shop Report. I'm Barbershop Jay. I'll be your host for the day. Here's what's happening. We start things off today by asking this question. Is there a distinction between athlete and athleticism? I say yes. I've had this ongoing conversation, as I always seem to do. I mean, I love debate. Good or bad, I just love debate, especially when it comes to sports. But I've had this ongoing conversation with colleagues and the usage of the term athlete. Not everybody who plays a sport is an athlete, but for the most part, those who play a sport have athleticism. In my estimation, the difference between an athlete and athleticism is this. An athlete is a person who can play a sport, any sport, for the first time. Had that been you laid eyes upon him, he looked like he'd been playing that sport all his life. Jim Brown, for instance, who's arguably the NFL's greatest running back ever, was a hell of a lacrosse player. All-American. On the other hand, one who has athleticism has an ability superior to those who are average, so to speak. On and on and on and on and on this conversation goes. An athlete has a level of skill for whatever sport it is he or she is playing, from top to bottom. This whole discussion about this guy, this NBA, this James Harden, for instance, being in the MVP race, but then said he ain't playing no D. This is unbelievable to me, man. These guys have athleticism. They're not athletes. Athletes do it on both ends of the flow, regardless of what the sport called for. By the way, this small ball, it ain't going to win this year's NBA Finals. I mean, Joel Embiid, man, this dude is like a breath of fresh air. I'm so tired of seeing the pick and roll and the ball screens and the three-point shots. Man, how can you celebrate a product? And I'm sorry to be redundant about this, man, but I see it every time I turn the tube on, man. And I'm sorry, I'm a traditionalist. I am. I'm not going to never not admit that. But you're watching a game in the NBA where the three-point shot or the percentages are better than those from the free throw line. How is that good? No, it's going to take an Embiid type. And I'm not saying he no all-star, but I mean he might as well be if Zaza Pachulia could be one. Oh, that's such a dumb down. It really is. But again, an athlete is one like a Deion Sanders. No matter what cap he wearing, Bo Jackson, they could arguably go down as the best or Hall of Fame. I'm not saying I would, but could one make a case for Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson going into the Baseball Hall of Fame as well as the Football Hall of Fame? Now, James Harden on the flip side might get into the Hall of Fame, but I mean, is he more at what he does more worthy of than those other two? It don't matter the sport, y'all. It don't matter the sport. Now, the AFC NFC matchups are set. We're going to tell you who wins and why. In the AFC, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the New England Patriots. Now, I ain't got to tell y'all that this game, both of these games are marquee in my instance. Despite the NFL, the shield is cracked with all the CTE and all the lawsuits here lately and the crybaby, I need a pacifier. I'm really too old to be riding in the stroller, but my mother pushing me anyway. NFL commissioner and versus the players. But this Steelers Patriots, man, and the Packers Falcons. It's why we all watch, despite all that other stuff going on, which is not irrelevant. But this is why this is what draws us in, the competition of. On the Steelers side of things, Antonio Brown's comments and whether or not it'll have an effect on this championship, on this AFC championship, I think that won't matter until the hindsight effect, as was the case with Odell Beckham and the Giants. But I think this is slightly different in the fact that Odell was top billing, quote unquote, but the Steelers have a pedigree. And Antonio Brown has balled out up to this point in terms of that pedigree. So he knows what's at stake. I really honestly don't think that he understood the ramifications. But then that's hard to really digest too, because you think about the Steelers and the organization and the culture and the mold that they have set, been put in place. You would think that he would already have some wherewithal. That's what's wrong with these today dudes for the most part. And I like Antonio Brown. He can ball. But a lot of these cats, man, they don't have no wherewithal. I could see that happening if it was the Cleveland Browns. Because unlike what Stephen A. might say about the Dallas Cowboys, the Browns are the accident waiting to happen. My bad. Shot across the bow. But I don't think his comments will matter until after the fact. And I, which I'll get into it here in a second, think that the Steelers will win. The Steelers' defense is not the same defense it was or it has been, in years past. But I'll say this, the past is no longer the present in terms of their secondary. We all know the Steelers and Dick LeBeau and that Blitzburg, so to speak, was that front seven, the down three and the four linebackers, which covered up the deficiencies, even though the secondary has some, some household names. But as a unit, they didn't always hold the back end well, especially, against these Patriots. A couple of times they done seen them in, in some big games, especially in the AFC Championships, which the Patriots won. I think they've seen them 4 times in the playoffs period and twice in the championships. And again, the Patriots got out on them both times. But I think this time is some time for redemption. And I say that in part because it's the first time that Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Ben Roethlisberger have played, have all been together in a playoff series or a playoff game. And I just don't think that, along with those three, the triumvirate and the Steelers' secondary that has been a lot better here recently than in years past. And this time I think the secondary is actually helping out the front seven. So as a unit, they've gotten better. Whereas opposed to, again, it was just maybe one portion of the unit that was holding the fort down. I think they got enough in that secondary this time. We know Bill Belichick is the master, so to speak, but they got enough in that secondary, man, to really cause the Patriots' defense a problem. And the Patriots' defense ain't no slouch. Now, they've been number one in just about every category since 1955, or at least that's what it seemed like. And defense does translate to the playoffs. And coaching, which again, Belichick, and having Brady. But when Brady, which I think is key for the Steelers defense, any defense playing Tom Brady, you have to get him off his spot. So I say, ultimately, despite the hype surrounding Antonio Brown's comments, the Patriots could actually fall victim to this redemption thing. As I mentioned, the Steelers are 0-4 versus the Patriots in the playoffs, in their entirety, or in the entire playoffs, losing twice, of course, to them in the AFC Championship game. Yes, Tom Brady's playoff acumen is quite impressive. But let's be real. He has had some Peyton Manning, the early Peyton Manning years, type performances. I'm talking about them type of games where your numbers say you should win it all. But we all know going 18-0 and losing to the Giants twice, say, hold up, man, not so fast. And besides, and this is no knock against the Patriots, but with all this chatter about strength of schedule, let's be real here. Let's be honest. The Patriots play in a weak division. I wonder if their playoff acumen or their playoff success or their success as a franchise period would be as eye-popping were the Patriots in the same division as the Steelers and the Ravens. That's just something to think about. So I'm picking the Steelers in this one, even though I think this will be, you ain't going to want to get up out your seat if you're watching this one. You're not going to want to get up out your seat. So I say the Steelers win based on the eye test. And the eye test is the best test if you know what you're looking at. Both of these teams have pedigrees worthy of being in this situation in this moment. But the Steelers are playing with a balance that could very well get them the victory. Or you could say of having a victorious outcome in this one. And it's about time. Now we turn things over to the Packers and the Falcons. Make no mistake about it. Aaron Rodgers is a unique talent. But on the flip side, the Falcons, for the first time in a long time, have a legit nucleus of the variables that translate from the regular season to the postseason. And my man Julio, Mohamed Sanu, and of all people, Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman, on defense, Dwight Freeney, believe it or not, and Vic Beasley, who some would argue is the best all-around player in these playoffs, in the entire NFL playoffs this season. That's saying a lot, but that's saying Clemson too, though. Now, not all the defensive players pan out, but when they do get one, you're writing his name down. And right now, Beasley is looking like that for these Falcons. I got to say I'm impressed. Because in years past, more recent here, the Falcons, the numbers said, that they were, a team, a force to be reckoned with. But like is the case with most of these sports teams we watch in this professional so-called, the play didn't match up to the hype. Therefore, in which case the analytics failed. But this go-round, Again, they have some things on the resume that this season that translate to a postseason. Speaking of Beasley, on defense, because both the Packers and the Falcons are suspect on the defensive side of the football. They've had their moments, but they're both suspect. I mean, the Packers just gave up 31 to Dallas. And although the Falcons may not have the star power in depth, if you would, as do the Cowboys, the way Matt Ryan is distributing the ball this year, they got weapons, especially in my man Julio Jones. They need to use Beasley as a spy for Aaron Rodgers. And then as a unit, be solid and keep everything in front of you. Communicate. But don't get it twisted. The Packers with Aaron Rodgers are always dangerous when they do get in the playoffs. Which actually you can be said for at least three of the team, the last four remaining in this NFL playoffs. And that's, of course, the Patriots and the Steelers, along with the Packers, of course. The Falcons, they're still somewhat new to the party. But they solid. Solid enough to win it all. This thing that Aaron Rodgers does as a quarterback in the NFL, I don't even know if I would spend the time trying to compare it to him, them, or what he said, she said, but she said she didn't. I just know when I watch this cat, man, it's his footwork and it's his technique and it's his confidence. Yeah, he will make a bad throw occasionally from time to time, but he can burn you. Unlike Tom Brady, when you get him off his spot, like Ben Roethlisberger, that's when they hurt you the most. And how do you defend that? How do you defend that? One could argue that you have a defense built to defend the entire field, which not many teams in the NFL do, and the Patriots do have one of them. Not so much the Steelers. The Falcons do have one of them somewhat. Not so much the Packers. How well do the defenses defend the entire field against these prolific offenses? No, everybody that's here, unlike the college football playoff, the folks on this one, they got it right. This four is right off the gate. But then that's what still, again, brings the NFL, what gives the NFL its allure, what keeps bringing us back. And let me say again, if Matt Ryan continues to spread the ball around like he has, because, I mean, a Cleveland Brown cast off, Taylor Gabriel, has made his presence known to what the Atlanta Falcons are doing on offense. The Falcons also have balance. Believe it or not, maybe second to only the Pittsburgh Steelers. No, I'll say third, my bad, to the Patriots and the Steelers. It's going to be a good one. These chips going to be a good one. And I got to tell y'all, as hard as it is to go against Aaron Rodgers, my mind is telling me Rodgers and them Packers. But my gut is telling me them Falcons. Because they done been, like the Browns, on this doorstep before, the Falcons have. So as an organization, even though it's been a while, they still have enough experience. They know how to get here. Now can they get over the hump? And this go around, I think they do. I say for Super Bowl 50, 100, Roman numeral LI, it's the Falcons and the Steelers. And the Steelers winning it all in Mike Tomlin fashion. I love what he said to Antonio Brown and how he said it. No, it's not about race. It's about real. Mike Tomlin represents us very well. Astutely, intelligently. If anybody can beat the Patriots, it's the Steelers. I can't say if anybody can beat the Packers, it's the Falcons. Because of the foundation that's been put in place in Atlanta, I say they will beat the Packers. Now, we're going to switch things over to some boxing. You all know, in May 6th, I believe, 2017, Canelo Alvarez takes on Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. If this fight takes place at Jerry World, it could turn out to be the largest pay-per-view boxing match on record or event. But if it takes place in Vegas, it'll be par for the course. Vegas is starting to lose its luster as being the premier fight host. I personally would like to see this fought at Jerry's World. Now, say what you will about him and what he got to say about Tony Romo and the Cowboys and Dak Prescott and how that's ain't got nothing to do with why he built Jerry's World. Should he have come out and said some of the things he said? Probably not. Is Jerry's World one of the best business ventures that he came through? Yes. Because let's face it, anybody with a business acumen or business mentality would have used that model, even if it was on a lower level. Similar to what I said when Cleveland Browns Stadium was built. Why not put a dome on it? The Browns have not given you the worth of the investment that you, the taxpayers, made. You ain't getting your money out of it. Just holding it there for the Browns to play in it all, one portion of a season, of a calendar year. No, Jerry knew what he was doing. That ain't just for the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm still kind of somewhat miffed, ticked off that Floyd and Manny didn't fight there when it was first announced. Folk talking about no, man, the longer it go, the more hype it get. No. And by the time them two finally got together, all I could see is Geritol as a sponsor. Or Icy Hot for all you new millennials. I say don't underestimate Chavez in this one. Why? Because we've seen this movie before. In 2004, Oscar De La Hoya was wrongfully awarded a victory over Felix Sturm. Now, you all going to have to look up who Felix Sturm was. But going into that fight, it had already been inked that at the time, in their prime, so to speak, De La Hoya was supposed to fight Bernard Hopkins, who, again, at the time, was truly the executioner. But on the way to that, De La Hoya had to fight Germany's Felix Sturm. Prior to the fight, it was all this talk like, that's all this one-sided, lopsided conversation. Oh, De La Hoya got the... But when the fight actually played out, man, Felix Sturm beat the brakes off De La Hoya. Folks underestimate. I didn't know who Felix Sturm was prior to that fight, but I remember who he is now. That fight was a forget-me-not for Felix Sturm and De La Hoya, who, if I'm not mistaken, was given a unanimous victory over. I still find that hard to believe. Chavez may not have the notoriety of Alvarez, but he got hands. This could be one of them, either very few or nobody saw it coming for Chavez. And I asked this question. Who does the catch weight favor at 164? I'm leaning a little bit more towards Chavez because he kind of, he's already used to the weight. And this dude can actually box, man. I think that's what a lot of people, again, Alvarez is picked. Not saying he's a bum by far, but he's young, man. And he's relying more so on athleticism than skill right now. I don't know why, but Mayorga comes to mind. I mean, Alvarez is a much more polished boxer. I'm just talking about in terms of their ring presence, so to speak. Just a heavy hitter. Not polished. Chavez is more polished. Let me say it like that. And then I don't know if this move up in weight is greater than or less than this move down in weight. But I think that both of their frames can handle the weight. Who's the better puncher? Who's the better body puncher? Chavez, I believe. What I really, really want to know, will this fight bring about a resurgence that the professional boxing so desperately needs? It's got to, because the sweet science has been replaced with cats like Adrian Broner. No offense. Who, and is not only guilty of, because there's a few of them out there, along with boxing as an entity, have continued to give it a black eye. Too much showmanship. Too much look at me. That's why they had to start making these fights free, so to speak. You're a fool if you pay. I want to see what the pay-per-view in terms of the actual fight amount is. I don't think it'll get, anywhere near that Floyd number. That 99, if you would. $9.99. I don't think it'll get anywhere near there. But I do think in terms of the grand scheme, so to speak, the bigger picture, when all the receipts are in from everywhere, it'll be one of the biggest. Do I see a knockout? No. Well, I take that back. In all honesty, if there was a knockout, it would be Canelo knocking out Chavez. But I just don't think that Canelo is as clean a puncher as is Chavez. But if it's reasonably priced, I'm going to get it. Because this fight says more about these fighters' legacies. No, I take that back. It says what this fight says about their legacies is no doubt up there. Belts on the line, bragging rights. But as I asked earlier, will this fight catapult boxing as a whole back into the spotlight? Or do we need the heavyweight division, as was the case once upon a time? And I got to tell you, I don't remember his name, or his name escapes me at the moment, but this guy who's currently the heavyweight champion, I don't take nothing from him. He's the champion. But if you watch him fight, it don't bring back memories of Wepner even. Or Ika Ibuchi. I'm just saying. I am actually looking forward to this fight. And there haven't been many as of late that I can say that about. Because the hype, when it's all said and done, the hype has started to outweigh the actual fight. Who wants to see Manny Pacquiao again? And I was a fan of Manny's once upon a time. And actually, I lost a little bit of boxing respect for both he and Floyd when they didn't get together in Dallas initially. That's still stuck in my craw. So this fight is not only important for Alvarez and Canelo, it's important for the sport of boxing. Because make no mistake about it, boxing and the UFC are fighting for viewership. Now, the UFC is up there, but boxing is about to be a distant 12th. If these new cats don't pan out, we have got to see the sweet science of. And all this talk about McGregor fighting Floyd, man, cut it out. Boxing is an art form. No disrespect to UFC, but it's a paid-for backyard alley fight. Fine, if that's what you want to spend your money on, I ain't mad at you. But if we talking about straight hands only, Floyd get a lot of flack for not having a fantastic knockout record. But he'll beat Conor McGregor so bad that it'll make up for 25 of the ones that folks say he should have got. Knockouts, that is. And this wouldn't be no contest. You know, this is that rappers want to be movie stars want to be rappers, man. Stay in your own lane. Stay in the UFC and grapple. Just grapple. That's what you seem to be good at. Now, I don't take nothing from it. I mean, I just don't get into it. You know what I mean? I just can't get into UFC. For those who do, hey, more power to you. But I tried to sit through a match. I see 1 punch, 2 punch, 3 punch, 4, then everybody grappling and grinding on the floor. I'm talking about for like 6.5 minutes, man. Don't know, you know, looks painful. Now, boxing, on the other hand, you know, you got to know how to come up out that corner. Or get back up after a knockout. Well, I guess the same could be said for UFC, but, you know. I think I would have been more impressed to see Ricky Hatton get back up after the way Manny dropped him as opposed to Ronda Rousey. You all understand what I'm saying. Canelo Chavez this May. Be there. And let me know what's happening. If you all want to weigh in on the question that I posed earlier in terms of is there a difference or a distinction between athlete and athleticism, email us. The Shop Report 365 gmail.com. Look us up on social media at The Shop Report. Let us know what your thoughts are. Twitter, Facebook, it don't matter. We want to know. We want y'all to weigh in on that. And based on the number of responses and the types of responses, keep them clean. We'll put them out there on the next show. On that note, it's been fun. But we got to run. Appreciate y'all for listening to the Shop Report. Check us out on social media at The Shop Report. Or email us, theshopreport365@gmail.com. If that don't work, Google it. I'm Barbershop Jay. And remember, the next time y'all want to know what's really going on, man, come to the shop. Walk-ins are always welcome. Holla.